So we've looked at learning domains and we've looked at a trainer's role in stimulating those learning domains of the brain. But now we're going to look more closely at adult learning. So we've gone from general learning to specifically learning theories for adult learners. So the four that we're going to look closely at is this concept of andragogy, and this is largely supported by Malcolm Knowles, who's a theorist in adult learning. We're going to look at the behaviourist theory, the cognitive theory, and the information processing theory. So andragogy. Those of you out there that are teachers, you practice pedagogy. So everything's all about your pedagogy. So as a school teacher, you're teaching the next generation of workers. So the knowledge, the skills, the applications are all for their future application in the real world. Now, some people claim that pedagogy is largely teacher-centred, but anybody who's taught in a schoolroom, you know, in the last few years or slightly longer, all of the professional development is moving more to an andragogy style. So this is where we're becoming more learner-centred. So it's not the chalk and talk that the teacher is giving, it's more handing it over to the learners and having them develop their knowledge and think about it. They're a lot more independent. So that's actually happening in a school system as well. And andragogy is all about people being present in their real life and applying these new theories immediately and drawing upon their current life experiences. So there's a little bit of a difference. Now, what Knowles is suggesting is that as a trainer, you have to be aware of the assumptions that adult learners are attending your training with. So they're going to be making these assumptions, and I've just summarised these here so you can imagine it from the learner's perspective. They'll be thinking, why do I need to know this? Now listen, I'm responsible for my own decisions, so you give me some choices please, and then I'll decide which activity, you know, fits me best. As you're giving them any lecture and information in your role as an instructor, they'll want to interject and share their own life experiences or work experience in this concept. And you have to allow time in your lesson plan, lots of buffer time, to allow that process to happen. You have to respect that and value that as part of giving the whole group a deeper context for your information. They're going to be asking, will this help me perform my tasks or deal with my problems in life? So they're looking at the relevance of what you're giving them. So you do need to sell to an adult learner. You do need to explicitly state just what this particular module or session will be doing to benefit them. And you can do that when you set up your objectives screen on your PowerPoint, you know, during your introduction of a session. They'll be asking, can you help my job satisfaction, my self-esteem, my quality of life? This is what they're looking for. This is what's motivating them to train in the first place. They're looking for increase in their job satisfaction, possibly through a promotion or increased responsibilities. Through the learning process, it is enhancing their self-esteem, their self-efficacy, their belief that they can be a learner, because we're living in a world, this knowledge economy, where we are lifelong learners. So when adult learners come to you, they may have a very low self-efficacy, a very low belief in themselves as an effective learner, and all it takes is one trainer to turn that around. Another theory is the behaviourist theory. So this is where a trainer can apply behaviourist theory to be effective. So you want to set out clear expectations, okay? You need to tell them what the outcomes that you're looking for at the end of the session or to get your competency. So you might turn to the competency standards. Perhaps they've got access to the training package, or you've replicated that visually in a way that they know clearly. We will work through this element. We will work out that you're competent in element 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and at that point you'll be competent. This is what competency looks like. It might be through the standard operating procedures. These are very clear expectations. It might be more behaviourally as a learner in your course, and you might point them to the terms and conditions that they signed upon enrolment. So clear expectations is one part. The other part of the puzzle with behaviourist theory is then the stimulus. So we've given them the expectations. Now we've got the stimulus, the positive stimulus, if they're meeting these expectations. So we are talking about the rewards, all right? The reward that if they meet our expectations, they might get an increased responsibility in the workplace. They'll receive a qualification or a statement of attainment. They might receive a higher salary or job security. So these are motivators. But ultimately, what you can do as a trainer is the stimulus of praise. So they're meeting our expectations. It's the verbal praise. It's the non-verbal body language. It's the thumbs up, the high five, the nod of your head. Those little micro acknowledgements. It's the public declaration in front of the learning group. Come and have a look at Jack, everyone. Look how he's tackling this task. This is awesome. Now, obviously, praise as a trainer, you have to maintain your own integrity. You can't fake it. You have to praise in a way that you're comfortable with. Otherwise, you're not going to enjoy the experience, and the learners are certainly going to recognise that this is a bit fake. So you have to praise in a way that is quite genuine within yourself. Now, another theory is cognitive theory. So this is where we're evoking insight, we're evoking discovery, and it's very much a learner-centred process. So we have an experience. Perhaps the experience is a lecture or a demonstration of a skill. And then the second step of that is the learner is drawing their own perceptions of that experience. Okay, and from their own perceptions, they're developing insight and discovering the skill or the knowledge for themselves. Okay, so that's a cognitive process. It's a cognitive theory of adult learning. So this is where, as a trainer, we're encouraging a learner to reflect at the end of a session. Now, we've talked before about when we're coaching and they're practicing a skill set, that there's a reflective process, or you giving a feedback process, perhaps yourself as the coach role as a trainer. But also when they're developing their knowledge, when you're in instructor mode, you're encouraging the learner to reflect at the end of your sessions. It only needs to be a quick 2 minutes on paper, which would be a great form of gathering evidence. Perhaps time constraints, resources constraints doesn't make that possible. So in these little gaps between training, it's important that they have a moment to duck off and have a coffee, perhaps have some social interaction, and a chance, even more informally, to reflect and share their perceptions of that experience. But you're prompting them. How can I use what I've learned? What do I want to learn more about? These are the types of questions you might casually approach them during a break and ask a few of them. You might make it more formalised as an expectation during the training session. The final learning theory is information processing theory. And this is where, as a trainer, you are chunking out the information. So you would give them a small chunk. This is the concept of eating an elephant one bite at a time. There's no way they can digest the whole elephant in one fell swoop. So little chunks, then by the second chunk, we're doing a quick review of the first chunk. and then adding new information. You'll notice when I started this particular clip, I made reference to general learning domains, and now in this second chunk we're talking about adult learning theories, okay, specifically for adults. So see that chunking process there. So, you know, by the next chunk and the next chunk, you're reviewing the previous chunk and then you're adding more. So the knowledge or the skill set is growing, and you can process because you've chunked it into easily digestible stages.